You've found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic, to bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotec and Bill Protzmann. And a very good day to you, wherever you are in the world. It's a happy new year here in Southern California in San Diego. And I'm pretty sure out there where John is. Bill Protzmann here along with John Krotec. Hey, John, what's up?
Hey, Bill, good to see you again, buddy. Things are great. I'm here on the sunny west coast of Florida and super stoked about today's guest. Damika Wallace is a mover and shaker. I mean, in like the biggest sense of the word or the meaning. And it's just happy and humbled to be here and that she's able to join us. Hey, Damika, where are you at?
I'm located in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Awesome. Is it sunny there?
It is today.
We got the country covered, you guys.
Yeah.
Damika and I met we met virtually on LinkedIn. I'm not sure how we crossed paths, but her organization, she's going to talk about that, called Her Vagenda, it really caught my ears and my attention. And then when I dug a little bit deeper and, we hear the saying, the timing is now, it's all about the timing. Yeah. What Damika is doing with her organization is so badly needed. And I couldn't think of a better time than right now with what we just went through this past year, but even more so how we can move forward. And Damika, before we delve into some great conversation, just give us a little bit of background on you.
A little bit of background on me. Army veteran. I served for 4 years, got out, went into school like everyone else, and just tried to find my own path. And, I guess I found my passion.
Yeah.
That's great. And yeah, we're Army. We're your sister. I'm a brother, right? We served with the green, and we didn't see any color in that organization. One thing that I like about what you're doing, and we talk about empowerment, and especially female empowerment and the way culture plays on us. I know that one of the private conversations we had several weeks ago was exactly that these social constraints that societies, not just in America, but all over the planet, place on women. Tell us about your plan, your vision, your mission, and why Her Vagenda. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my passion came from, I think, everybody knows someone who have experienced some kind of sexual assault, sexual harassment. And so with that being said, a lot of people struggle with intimacy. Just conversations I have with friends that are female or male, a lot of them struggle with, building lasting relationships. I've often heard conversations where people talk about,
Hey, Marie.
No, that's not Marie.
It's not? I thought it sounded like your dog, John.
No.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry, Damika. We always welcome our four-footed friends.
Okay, that kind of scared me a little bit, but I apologize.
It scared me too. I don't know what the hell.
Yeah, so a lot of my friends who are in relationships, they struggle with intimacy, and it's caused a lot of issues, a lot of divorce, infidelities. And I was just thinking one day, and I was like, well, you know what? I'm on this journey of finding a new me and try to figure out what I want out of life as a woman when it comes to relationships. And then I thought, I think this will be a great conference for a lot of female veterans because, we struggle with relationships. I think probably not more than everyone else, but there's a lot of incidents behind sexual assault in the military. And I know a lot of friends who were, as well as myself. And so I decided that, let me put together this conference. And from that, just the outpour of support from VSOs and other organizations, a lot of males have come forward and talked to me on the side and was like, hey, my sister has gone through this. I've had a couple girlfriends who have struggled with intimacy in relationships due to sexual assault in their past. And this is something that's very well needed.
Absolutely. I'm going to take it back just a notch, talking about culture and society and what it does. And this may sound kind of crazy, but when I was in the 8th grade, I remember hanging out with the boys, right? Mm-hmm. And all the boys talked about was derogatory remarks even in this early age about girls. And I can remember writing a poem, I'm going to admit that I was writing poetry in the 8th grade about the reason why I hated being a guy. And it centered around just the discussions that guys had about girls. And I mean, I even knew at such a young age, even then, that they were getting a raw deal somehow. It was a gut feeling that I got that, wow, guys, these are our friends. These girls are our friends. And I can't believe the way we're talking about them. And just support what you're saying. I mean, it starts at such a young age, this cultural thing that puts women in a less than human place. And oh my gosh, I can remember that. I didn't mean to put that in there, but it's important for us to realize these thoughts start at a very young age. So you're right, Damika, when you say that it's complex around the assault and all that. We're not going to dwell there, but what do you think about that? Bill, did you notice anything like that coming along as a guy listening to other guys?
Yeah, it bothers me the way that there's so much misogynist humor, like in late elementary and middle school. It isn't healthy. But I think it's something you have to kind of get out of your system until you see it the other way. And this sort of male-driven culture that we've lived in for, I don't know, thousands of years now, in the main, is not the only culture that exists. Like, there are female-led cultures too. And if we can learn what the best parts of both are and somehow integrate them, I think that's going to go a long way toward resolving the intimacy issues that you're talking about, Damika, because we all need love. We all need companionship. And why put up barriers to that or create a situation where the only kind of companionship you can have is fleeting and not satisfying, right? You need to be able to get beneath that. And John, you make a good point. This has just been the way things are, but it isn't the best possible option. I mean, Damika, what do you say? Like, if you could reinvent the wheel right now, what would the wheel look like for you?
For me?
Yeah, for like, with all the gender plurality that we have right now, what would that look like? All of the possibility in that.
I think it's just women just establishing boundaries, being more confident in themselves, and knowing exactly what they want. I think when that occur, a lot of women, I think relationship would changes, the way men pursue women, the way men interact with women would kind of change because they're held to a different standard. Things of the past, can no longer happen. And then also, I think going back to your point about childhood, there's kind of like an environment where parents teach women one way, teach the boys another way, and that kind of like perpetuate that kind of like sex culture, or that people have a term that's been kind of coming up lately. But I think just moving forward, the more we talk about it, the more we're comfortable with the conversation around sex and also standards and boundaries. I think that can cause a lot of healing.
So you mentioned the conference a couple times. This is a great place to plug that. Can you, just for everybody who's listening and watching, could you talk about the conference and what it's intended to do, when it happens, how to join, all that? We'll put the poster up too.
Sure. So the conference is going to be held on Women's Veterans Day here in the DFW area. It's going to be a virtual conference, and there will also be an in-person piece. But specifically, we're going to be talking about sensuality and sexuality after MST. Not so much we're not focusing on the MST part, but we're going to focus more on kind of like the current state of where a lot of women are along their journey, because you're never going to get to a point where you're completely healed, but just to a point where, okay, this is my struggle in my relationship. This is my third marriage. My struggle has always been intimacy, and that's kind of like the end of, that's the end of my relationship. So I'm at this point where I struggle with this one piece. What are some steps that I can use in order to move past that? I want to feel comfortable with my boyfriend sitting on the couch and just him putting his arm around me and trying to kiss me without me feeling like uncomfortable.
Yeah, like pulling away.
Exactly. So what are those steps that I can use in order to kind of move past that and build boundaries, be more confident in myself, and knowing, like, as a woman, just period, you can have a bag over your head or a bottle over your body and you're still going to be considered sexy. So kind of what are those steps? For the conference, we're going to have a sex therapist, Dr. Kat from California. She's amazing. All of the ladies are amazing. Stacy Murphy, she is a sex coach out of Florida. Rachel Grant, she is a psychologist and also a sex coach. And then we have the great um, Karen Craig. Sorry, I apologize.
All good.
Karen, her and her husband is a duo. She is a tantra instructor and practitioner, and she's also a sexologist. So the lineup is like great. They're going to have some great conversations. They're going to have some great takeaways from the conference. This isn't a conference where you just come and you just listen and it's boring the entire time. It's going to be interactive. We want you to, ask questions. There will be a panel, so you can ask as many questions as possible. All I just ask is that we don't talk about the sexual assault piece. Let's leave that to, your one-on-one counseling. This for this conference is more about, hey, I'm coming because I have a question. I don't want to continue down the same lane that I was going with my spouse or my current spouses. I want to do something different. I want to have a great, sex life if that's the goal. I want to have great intimacy and be able to be vulnerable with my spouse or my boyfriend, or as a single woman, I just want to be more confident.
That's awesome. A couple of things, and I'm glad that you're not focusing just on the sex act or whatever happened itself.
Yeah, like the traumatic moment.
And what's interesting with that what I think the ladies are going to find out is that it permeates into what they wear, how they act on the job, the kind of jobs they get. I mean, how they even act in public and the intimacy for sure. But what I really like about what you're doing, and this is probably the biggest thing, Damika, for me listening to you, is you're creating a safe zone, a safe place with people. It comes through with you, with people that really are concerned for each other. And I think anytime we can go to a safe place and not feel judged, and we're able to speak our mind in a way that's not going to be put down, you're setting up an environment that has the amazing potential. I know this is your first one, but this thing could really blow up, and we hope that it does. And imagine how many people that you can have a part in empowering them to be to live a much better and fulfilled life. But that's the part that I like, Damika, is that you're setting up this freaking safe zone that women can take all the way to the bank. That's cool.
And I definitely agree. And to that point, I've kind of been thinking about that, and what other ways besides the conference can I get involved in helping, or, just cultivating like this environment for women to grow and build their confidence. And here in the DFW area, locally, every month I'm going to start like an event hosted by one of my VP. She's amazing. She teaches sex therapy, or she does sex therapy. And she's going to be hosting events monthly to basically on the same thing. It's building off of each other. So the first event is going to be sexual karaoke, where women can come and just perform karaoke in a safe environment. And she's going to talk about the importance of doing things that's outside of, what you normally do. And it's in a safe place, and it's building you up for being, maybe eventually you go home and you be like, you know what? I do kind of feel a little bit sexy today. Or, I feel a little more comfortable in my skin as a woman, because before that, because of the assault or sexual harassment or whatever issue women have had in their past that has caused them to no longer be as confident in themselves, and also be a little insecure, just through the practice of just doing things that are sexy or that's fun. Eventually you build confidence in it, and will be able to be like, you know what, I'm walking a little different. My confidence is, a little bit up. I like the way I look. I'm perfect in my own eyes. So it's just building on that. And then also, I know we haven't spoke about this, but I'm starting a men's group that's going to be hosted every single week.
Thank you.
It's going to be hosted by a male sex therapist, a male tantra teacher, a pastor, and then there's one guy, he was sexually assaulted in the military, and he's just all on board. He was like, look, it happened to me, but it's not me, and I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to help other people move outside of this. And kind of like the conference, this is not talking about, this isn't a session where you come here, we sing kumbaya, hold hands and cry as men. That's not the thing. It's the purpose of it is for men to come together, have candid conversations about their struggles, which oftentimes a lot of men do not speak out. They don't talk about it. You know, a lot of guys since I've started this have called me and was like, hey, I've never talked to anyone about this. No one in my family know, but I was sexually assaulted as a child.
I kept it quiet for 42 years.
And a lot of men have. And so for them to feel comfortable coming and talking to me about it, calling me, or I'm out doing something and the conversation is just about what I'm doing. And they're like, hey, you know, I really never told anybody this, but you know, this is what happened to me. And I'm like, it happens to a lot of people. A lot of women are sexually assaulted and you never know. People probably in your family, people at your job, people at school, you know, people maybe your neighbor. And a lot of times that impacts not only their, you know, immediate relationships, but every relationship, because sometimes they can't establish relationships with anybody outside of that because they don't trust not only themselves, maybe they don't trust themselves because of, I think that they're probably thinking to themselves, it's my reason, that was my decision that caused me to go through XYZ, or had I did this. So then they kind of like become more introverted and don't want to be around people, don't want to talk to anybody. But this is kind of like, you know, it happened. Let's move forward as a group. Let's move forward together. You're not the only one. You're not the first one. You won't be the last one. But I definitely believe that everything happens for a reason, and that sometimes God allow the best people to go through the worst things in order to help other people come along. So that's kind of like my purpose in all of this. I went through my struggles in order to help other women come through this. And even telling my story is kind of like, you know, sometimes I'm kind of terrified about it, and I'm very much an introvert. So for me to come outside of my box, I'm like, you know, hopefully other women will come out and see, you know, eventually maybe it's not as scary and I can tell my story. And you telling your story, maybe a family member will come to you and be like, hey, that's what happened to me. I never knew that happened to you. And you're so confident, and you know, you can easily talk about this. And I'm like, but it wasn't overnight. It was a struggle, but eventually you'll get there. So with all my series, whether it's the conference, whether it's the in-person, the local events, or with the men's event, is we're having a candid conversation. It's a trusting environment. No, none of your business is going to get out to anyone, and we're just going to ask the hard questions. We're going to have those hard conversations and kind of take down that negative stigma around sex. And we're all going to be intimate, whether it's emotionally or sexually, but we're going to have lasting relationships, and that is my goal.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And you know, you're talking about storytelling. You know, it's been said that by the time a girl's 18 years old, that 1 out of 3 has a story to tell, you know, about some type of sexual thing going on. And the boys, they say, is 1 out of 5. And there's been some experts that have said the boys may be even more, because the perpetrators know that the boys don't talk. And so I'll tell you, Damika, that's brilliant, you know, and you've been able to set up this environment for both, not just the ladies and the girls, but for the guys. That's awesome. You know, so you're gonna get to a point to where, I know that we're talking about sex right now, and I know that you're going to talk about fertility and childbirth and, you know, single motherhood and all those.
Yeah.
Are you also going to take it outside, maybe the veterans, and how are you going to do that? You're going to expand this beyond the veteran walls, or is it just for veterans now?
Currently it's just for veterans. I feel like in the veteran community, we're overlooked a lot of times. Yeah, we do go to VA and we do have a great support system. A lot of us have friends around us. We have some of the best therapists that there is through the VA system or some ancillary services. However, I feel like certain areas of our life are overlooked. And I feel like when it comes to sex therapy, that's overlooked. When it comes to wanting to get pregnant, that's overlooked. Personally, I decided last year that I want to go through the process of fertility. Like I'm about to be 37 this year, which, I'm not afraid about sharing my age, but I'm about to be 37. I'm single and I want to have kids. And so me going to my provider and telling her like, hey, I want to go through fertility treatment. I have a disability rating for it. And because of some things that happened in the military, and I want to have my own kids. So I feel like you should send me to fertility treatment. And so,
That's
sometimes there's some issues. I think the VA, they're changing, which is a great thing. They're realizing there's more women that are entering into the military. There are more women that are getting out of the military. And we have health needs. And so for VA now to say, okay, so we can offer this, we can do this, but still, like as a female veteran, we struggle with in a lot of areas, just all the exposure, whether it's um, sexual assault, whether it's, an injury from an accident, being in combat, something stemming from maybe depression, PTSD, that causes a lot of women to be not able to carry a kid or even get pregnant. And so there are a lot of questions around it. A lot of us going into the military at the age of 17, like myself, so we don't know too much about childbearing, what options are out there. And so this year I was thinking about putting together another conference around all things fertility, from I'm thinking about getting pregnant to I'm pregnant and I just went through the implementation stage. What's next? What should I be doing? Eating? Okay, I'm 8 months. What am I doing? What's the process?
Yeah.
What does it look like? What are my options? A lot of women don't know about the different options that they have for giving birth, childbirth. So bringing in people that can talk about that, um, bring in experts who could talk about like postpartum depression and postpartum care. Um, probably the first year or first 6 months of the first year of the kid's life, and talk about what that experience is, what you should be doing. And then, hey, I just had a kid, but I want to have another kid. So is that a good option? Should I bounce back in there and getting pregnant? And just bringing in, like I said, just bringing in experts that can talk about every stage of pregnancy, from the idea to conception to I've had the kid and now I want to have another kid.
I'm listening to you and you're talking about a very brave thing. And I don't know your personal situation, but the fact that you want to have a child is so important to you that like everything else is disappeared behind that. And I'm curious as a guy, like, how do you introduce the right kind of male energy and presence into that potential opportunity for you and your child?
So currently I have a lot of male friends. I have a lot of male friends just over a lifetime, whether it's childhood, best friends, to a lot of guys I've met in the military that I've continued being friends with, to people that I've met, from a friend of a friend, and we just became friends. And all of them are platonic relationships. All of them are like my best friends, my brothers that I look up to for everything. I talk to them about everything. And so I think I have like a great male support system around me that I couldn't do that. And all of them are supportive. Their family is so crazy that it's to the point where their families know about it. So
Yeah.
when I come over, like their families talk about it, their moms is like, oh my God, this is going to be great. I can't wait. And this is brave. This is a brave thing that you're doing. And a lot of people are starting to realize, even my mom, that, you don't have to be married in order to have a kid. You don't have to be in a relationship, because a lot of times those relationships don't work out. And when they don't work out, your intent was good. You got married, you had a kid, it didn't work out. And that causes a lot of issues with raising a child. I'm just going in this trying to be the best person I can be. And that comes from me last year deciding that I'm going to be working on myself. You know, there's a lot of things that I need to work on, even before becoming a mom, but I'm doing the work. I'm going to show up. I have a great support system around me, both male and females around me, who are all in. Like, they're excited about me having a kid, and they're like, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there for every birthday. during the summers, the kid is going to come and visit me and my kids. And, it's just great to tell someone something that you want so bad and to tell people around me, and they're like receptive and they're excited. They're more excited than I am to make that decision. So
I love this. This is so inspirational to me because, I'm like nuclear family mindset.
mhm.
And I know that that's all blown apart. My daughter and her wife want to foster kids, right? It's like the idea of family anymore is just this beautiful, inclusive thing that we didn't have, John, when we were growing up, right? I mean, it was a big family, but it wasn't like this kind of opportunity is beautiful.
Well, Damika raises some really good points because, first of all, they're real issues. Nuclear families, non-nuclear. Is there a non-nuclear family? But real issues with an authentic approach and being open and honest about it. And I know lots of married couples who probably who had kids, like Damika points out, and maybe they shouldn't have been together. And then I've known some kids and peers that were raised in a single mom or single dad family who adjusted real well. So we don't really understand how all those dynamics work, but I do know that by opening up forums and having workshops and opening up these discussions, we can either come to consensus or at least educate ourselves about all the options out there. Because I would imagine a 17-year-old young girl joining the Army, she needs to expand her horizons. And Damika has taken her personal experiences in life and opened it up to a whole new array of opportunities. Damika, how can we help you, or are you looking for corporations to help you? Do you need that kind of help?
Oh, sure. So one thing that I didn't talk about, all of my events for female veterans are free, and for males, free. The conference is free. Also, the local events are free. They will be hosted at American Legion, which they thankfully and graciously, provided me a space. But there's a lot of costs associated. I'm not a nonprofit. I am a for-profit. So, and there's a lot that goes behind that decision, but I decided to move forward with that option. But there's a lot of things that I want to offer these female veterans. There are a lot of partnerships that I'm currently working on. I'm working on a relationship with Fort Hood and having them to put out the information about the conference that's coming up in June this year, which is June 12th, 2021, Women's Veterans Day here in Texas.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm welcome to anything someone wants to donate time. Maybe we can do some content around it. Production, I definitely need production, but just anything will help.
Go ahead.
I got it. Okay. So you make an interesting sort of distinction here. A military sexual trauma is something that we sort of become more aware of in the last 20 years or so. But sexual trauma has been around for a long, long time. And gosh, I remember in the 80s reading a book by a survivor, and I was just shocked. I mean, I knew that stuff went on, right? But I had no idea the depth that was behind that. And I really see what you're doing is like the tip of the iceberg opportunity for women veterans, whether or not they're MST survivors, but for women veterans to come together and support all of the sisters who've pretty much been the tip of the iceberg in service. I mean, it's only in the last 20 years that women have been in service at this kind of level and at this kind of stature. We have women command. There's incredible stuff happening. So what you're doing is so key right now to sort of connect a long history of past sexual trauma that's sort of in our DNA, sadly, with the potential for something new and a change around that, and the uncovering, the awareness of those things, and sort of the excising of the beliefs that result in this. Obviously, somebody had to believe that women could serve in combat, and now they are. And it's like, wow, right? Yeah. We got our first woman ranger, I think, last year. But anyway, it's really a beautiful thing. So this is all coming to a question here. So I'm looking out into the future, in 10 years from now. What is it that you're doing then?
So 10 years from now, I've thought about this. I don't know how much I want to put out. I definitely have plan, but 10 years. I really do see probably like a multifaceted facility for female veterans to come and get free services, whether it's for sex therapy, couples treatment, fertility, training, all things fertility training. So that's kind of like one thing, one aspect I'm trying to move toward. But going back to John, I think you asked a question about, no, Bill, I think you asked a question about whether this is just for female veterans, just for veterans.
Right.
This year is just for veterans. Next year, I think I'm going to extend out to civilians, especially maybe veteran spouses. I might open it up for veteran spouses this year as well, because kind of like we were talking about, not only do female veterans experience sexual assault, but males do as well in the military.
Yeah.
So just opening this conversation up to to military spouses, I think that will kind of help. Female spouses will kind of help.
Yeah, so be able to see the other side maybe a little more clearly.
Exactly. And maybe they can bring back these tools and tips and techniques in order to help their own relationships as well. But yeah, so next year, I think I'm going to open it up to everyone, because women veterans, we experience a lot, we go through a lot. And I feel like at times we're limited on the services that were provided by the VA.
Right.
And then a lot of times we have to go outside of that and come out of our own pocket and then a lot of times we just don't know what we need. I don't think a lot of people know that sex therapy is a thing. I don't know a lot of people think that Tantra is a thing. And kind of, I think, John, we had this conversation months ago where I talked about, for a lot of us, we grew up and I know I'm going kind of like everywhere.
No, you're doing good. Go
okay,
for it.
Great. So a lot of us, I grew up in a Baptist environment. Like I went to church probably out of 7 days, maybe 5 days a week.
Yeah.
So to go from that environment where you're taught that sex is bad, don't do it, don't see it, don't talk about it, don't hear it, none of that. So then you're in the military now and you experience sexual assault. So then that's perpetuating that sex is bad. And then finally you get into a relationship and it's kind of like, okay, now you can have sex. A lot of people still aren't comfortable. So just, yeah.
No,
stigmas that, and sex is just seen as a taboo thing, and I'm just trying to move past that. It's not a bad thing when it's used for good. When you do it in the right context with the right person at the right point in your life, then I think it's great. But I think that needs to be the conversation more than just don't do it.
So I have to tag on this because it's such an important point. We're all hoping for that magic moment where love at first sight kind of thing. And what I hear you saying is that it's important to be ready for that.
Exactly. No one tells you what's going to happen, how it's going to go down. And then I think it's also a comfort thing. There's always been comfort in knowing that, you just don't have sex before marriage and, God will be happy with you. And it's comfort in that. And then when you go outside of that and then now you're married and it's kind of like, now you have sex. Not only are you not comfortable with it because it's something that's always been taboo and you just never talked about, but then also as a woman, we're allowing the man to dictate how everything is going to happen.
Right.
I think one of the important things here too, that I was raised Catholic and did the whole Sunday school and the altar boy thing. And we were taught that it was taboo and all that. And of course what happened, right? But one of the things that I think keeps people at bay is the family and the family's reaction. Because I even knew at 9 or 10 years old that to break that story loose, somehow I was going to be the guy that somehow it was my fault. Somehow I was the one that was going to reap the wrath of my mom or my dad. And so the family is so important to the whole process. If somebody comes out, sometimes people in the family are the ones that are doing these things.
Yep.
And so I think it's important to the process is one thing, but Damika's end game is what makes this so valuable, because by talking about these things and educating each other, from our own experiences, you're only going to make the world a better place. And you're going to improve the lives of these people that come to your conferences and pick up on what you're trying to do. Because I know somewhere, Damika, in that heart of heart of yours, but also in your head, because you're very smart, that your end game is to make the world just a better place.
Oh, I
I
agree.
mean, yeah.
And that's relationships, kind of going back to your point about families. You know, a lot of women who would go through this process, and men, and come to a point where they're healing and their relationships are healing, and they're more not yeah, they're more intimate, but just having a better relationship, that is foundational for a family. And I think, in a family environment where sex is not taboo, and not just sex, but nothing is taboo and everything is talked about.
Yeah.
I think it builds a better foundation for kids to grow up knowing boundaries. Like, I'm not doing this. Don't talk to me this way. This is how you're going to treat me. This is how my mom treats my dad. This is how my dad treats my mom. This is how my parents treat me. And this is how, this is how I stand in the world. This is the
Right.
standard in how you're going to treat me just as a person to person. Like, I'm not less than. Don't belittle me. Don't talk down to me. Don't think that, just developing better families and raising kids in a way where it's healthy environment, it's a transparent environment, and the world would be better, definitely, for the future.
We all know that it's possible to heal from sexual trauma in some way, but if someone has never started that journey before, Damika, what would you say to a woman that comes to you and says, I had this MST experience in this military service, and I want to change. I'm really open to that. What would you say to somebody like that who wants to be able to start the process? Are they looking at a multi-year process? Is it easy? Is it hard? I mean, can you give some just some comfort in terms of what that experience might look like to someone who wants to do it for the first time?
I think I can't really answer the question about the time frame or anything like that, but from my experience, I kind of shoved it on the inside, didn't talk about it for decades.
Yeah.
My family didn't even know, people that I served with didn't even know. I think probably not even a handful of people even knew about the things that I experienced in the military. And just I shoved it inside and put on this little face, because in the military you never show your weakness. And I just put on that hard exterior and tried to move on with my life until after I got out the military, and I'm going through about to get married, and I'm just struggling. And I never knew why I was struggling so bad until finally I started feeling like I was having heart attacks. So I kept going to the ER like almost every week. And finally, VA was like, look, you need to go and talk to someone, because this isn't a heart attack. You're stressed. So I'm gonna need you to go ahead and come on over here to therapy and talk to someone. And I think that's the first step. Is when I first went to therapy, I sat there for an entire year. 2 days a week I went. 2 days a week, and I just sat there and let the therapist talk, and I never said anything. And then finally I started opening up to that person, and they were like, no, this is what happened to you. And then from there, it was kind of like, now I feel even worse. It's just a process. Everybody is not going to, so the healing process is not going to be the same for everybody. There's some people who can go through it and, they bounce back. But I think the longer you wait, it's kind of like ripping that Band-Aid. You got to just rip the Band-Aid off and deal with it right then, instead of letting it, the scar tissue form over it. Now you got to go back and work on the scar tissue. So the first step would definitely be go and talk to a therapist, be as vulnerable, as open as possible, because you definitely want to just get it. Once you get everything out, put it all on the table, and like really see it for what it is, then you can start healing from it and moving forward. And then also maybe talking to family members. That's something I did not do. I didn't tell my mom. I don't even think I've still even told my mom.
Yeah.
Like, I told family members, I have never directly told my mom, hey, this is what happened to me. Just out of feeling like my mom is going to see me as something weak. Even being in the military, I never wanted to like really talk about it, because I always felt like I would be seen as somebody that's weak. I grew up with very strong women in my life. My grandmother raised me, my mom, and that was just the worst feeling in the world, to feel like I allowed myself to go through something and I couldn't protect myself, or to talk to my mom and she's very protective, to be talk to her about it and she's like, I couldn't protect you. So yeah, just first step, go and get therapy.
You know, somebody asked me, I'm not, listening to the story, Damika, and what your plans are, and how you're going to approach this. If somebody asked me, John, what's Her Vagenda all about? I would say, you know what? It's a mission that gives ears, voices, and skills to those women who feel voiceless, like they're not being heard, and who need the help to lead a better life. And anytime that we can empower others and help them, I think, Damika, you are doing the ultimate give back. You don't want to see girls and young women go through what you experienced. And I got to tell you, that is called, they don't make medals. Those medals are made in heaven for people that do that. And I just commend you for having the courage to be a woman in today's day and age, where everybody's coming out with something. Yeah. But you're coming out with something like Her Vagenda that is seriously relevant. And wow, that's pretty cool. And I'm just thrilled to death to be at least part of this with Bill in a conversation with you. But hopefully we can move forward with you and watch you grow and help people too, right along next to you, but you're doing something really cool. And I just can't say enough about it. That's why we have this show, is because I get so inspired and motivated by fellow human beings, in this case, an Army sister and a person that's experienced similar things to me, and realize that, hey, wow, we're on the right trajectory and we can't fail. Yeah. We can't fail, Damika. We just can't. Just the fact that you're talking about it, I'm telling you, you're earning your stripes right now. And I just, whatever we can do on our end, we're here for you.
We'll keep the all the contact stuff in the show notes. If you're watching this or listening to this right now, go to YouTube, ahoradio.com. You can get the description, and we'll have hookup information so you can find Damika, you can find the conference, you can learn more about Her Vagenda. If you want to volunteer or show up with any kind of question, concern, whatever it is that you've got, Damika's the leader. So let's make sure that if you're listening, you want to connect, you can do that. It's an awesome opportunity. It's really an awesome opportunity. I've watched veterans for the last, 30, 40 years, I guess, in my life. I'm surrounded by military families, and veterans are such leaders. And it doesn't matter if you've been in leadership or in command in the military. We're talking about people who come out like they never made it beyond what's the lowest possible rank, Damika? I'm depending on your service, of course, private, I don't know. And then they jump up and they do these amazing things. And you would never have known, like based on their military service, that they were going to do this incredible thing that they now do. And I'm talking, of course, mostly about human services here, because at the end of the day, even if you've been in combat, even if you're a combat hardened commander, you're still a human being, right? And all of that humanity is just sort of pouring out now in initiatives like the one that you've got going, Damika, and that you're building your life around in a very beautiful way. And yeah, that's inspiring. That is just, I'm just humbled to be here right now.
Damika, give us from you, give us your daily mantra. When you get up and you look at your face in the mirror in the morning and you're getting ready to go out, what are you saying to yourself? What is your empowerment mantra?
Honestly, I don't want to disappoint. I have no mantra. I want to say every day before I go to bed every night I kind of revisit what I did through the day, and I'm like, okay, tomorrow I have to do this. This has to get done. And I just think about where I'm going and where I want to be. And I'm like, okay, what are the steps? Because to think about where you're going or where you want to be in life, It's overwhelming at times, and sometimes even I feel faint. Even with this project, I feel like it's bigger than me. Starting out, I just wanted to do a conference, and that was it. And then now it's turning into something that's greater than me. And at times, like I feel like maybe I'm not the right person for this. Maybe I need to, but every day I take baby steps. For me, I can't slay, Goliath. Sometimes you just got to take a rock. So you just need to do one step at a time. And I do that every single day. One day at a time. I do one thing at a time every day. I'm like, as long as I can get up out the bed, at least if I'm in it, I got to be productive. Let me get on my phone, messages. Let me write some ideas. Let me go back to my business canvas and go through that. And every single day, I take steps. It's baby steps.
Awesome. That's some great tips.
I'm right there with you. I grew up as a goal-oriented strategic thinker, and I've learned that it's nonlinear, that the things that are going to show up regardless of whether I think I'm driving the boat or not. And I love that approach of just being open and welcoming and curious and what's the next thing to do and doing the next thing.
Yep.
Confident that is part of the journey, right? Rather than just the whole goal in one tiny step. Like, no, that isn't how it happens. That's not the world. That isn't the world.
I agree. And if you think about it like that, sometimes it just becomes too much for you and too overwhelming for you to move forward. So for me, I just put that to the side. I'm all about peace. I try not to get too anxious about anything. So I just take one step at a time. I break everything down into steps. Okay, let me do this today. This is what I have to get done. And things change, things come up, and you just got to roll with the punches.
That's awesome. Well, we're thrilled to death to have you here. We're looking forward to this first event of yours that I know you've been working your tail end off on. And I know I somehow get the feeling that you are going to have a lot of future conferences. And so anybody watching this interview with Damika Wallace of Her Vagenda, you got to get involved, pull some strings, make things happen, help her out on her mission, because this is a very legitimate and badly needed mission, because we need more empowered women out there to make, to help raise strong kids, but to make the society even better than it is. And Damika, power to you, sweetheart. And we're gonna do this. So thank you.
I definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much, Bill and John, for inviting me on, and thanks for the individual conversations that we've had to kind of build me into this, because I was extremely nervous. But thank you so much for your time.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a pleasure.
Blessed.
Yeah, I just feel so inspired this morning. And I mean, I'm generally pretty inspired, but I feel so inspired right now, Damika. Thank you for being here on AHO Radio with us. John and I are just so blessed to be able to help support what you're doing. Would love to continue to do that. And for everybody who's out there listening, again, check the show notes, because you know what? This is a worthy cause. And whether or not you can actually do anything, put it on your radar so you can stay engaged and stay involved. Because we're talking to somebody here who's going to be changing the world around sexual trauma.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind. And if you're a girl out there listening, check out hervagenda.com.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of AHO Radio. Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected. And as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO. AHO.
AHO.